Hey nerds! Welcome to the React.js full course powered by React 19 and packed with real projects. In this episode, we are jumping into JSX, that magical mix of HTML looking code inside a JavaScript file that makes React so easy and fun to use. We'll talk about what JSX is, how it works, why it matters, and even look at how ugly things used to be without it. So buckle up. JSX is Beyonce of front-end syntax, and you are about to see why. So what is JSX? JSX stands for JavaScript XML. It looks like HTML, but it actually runs inside JavaScript. It's not a new language. It's just a way to write UI using HTML syntax inside your JS code. Under the hood, JSX is converted into React.createElement calls, which is how React builds your UI. If you ever saw HTML tags inside JavaScript and thought, wait, that's illegal, JSX makes it totally legal. Think of it as HTML with superpowers. Let's look at what React code looked like before JSX was a thing. Okay, so we are now in our React 19 course project, which we have created in episode 1. If you have missed it, go watch that first and then come back. Okay, so here initially I'll remove the boilerplate code we have. Okay. Now, suppose in this app component, I needed a card element, okay, and that card should have basically a div, and inside that div, I want one image and one h2 tag, one p tag, and one button. Okay, so let's see how we can create it without using JSX, and then we'll see how JSX simplifies these things. Okay, so let's come into this return statement. And here, what we're gonna do, we are gonna create these elements using React.createElement. Okay, so let's use React.createElement and let's import React as well from here. Okay, and this React.createElements should take three things. One, the node type. Second, the props. Third, its children. Okay. So first, what we want a div. So here, the first parameter of this method should be what type of node we want. So it should be div type. Okay. And in this div, I want to pass a class. And what should be the class name? I want the card class in that div. So how can I pass that? In the second parameter. Okay. So it should be basically an object. So object and the prop name I want to pass. So I want class name right now. So class name, I want card class for that div. Okay. Now the third parameter should be its children. So in div, I want image h2p and button. Okay. So let's add one by one. So here first I want a image tag. Okay. So for that, now again I have to do the create.react element for this. So let's do that. React.create element. Okay. Now here again, these three things I need to give it. First is node type. So I want image tag. Okay. Now second is prop. So in object, what I want one source of this image. Suppose I'll pass something HTTPS via placeholder.com/150. This is my image source. Okay. And what else I can pass in this? Suppose I want to pass the alt attribute also. So here I want profile. Okay. Now the third thing should be the child, but within the image tag I don't want any child, so I won't pass it. Okay. Now this first child of this div has been created. Now let's come within this. Let's do one thing. Let's format it so that our app doesn't look like garbage. Okay. Now I have added one child. Now I want a h2 child within this div. within this div. So again, I have to do the React dot create element, and within this node type should be h2, and I don't want to pass any props, so I'll pass it as a null. Now here I want to pass the content of this h2. So for now I'll add Nerdsprite. Okay, so this card will see Nerdsprite as a heading. Now I want a p tag. So for that again I have to do the same thing. So let's just copy paste it. So here I want here a paragraph tag with text React 19 full course. Okay. Now at last I want a button component. Okay. So let's just copy paste it again. Here I want a button, right? And here I'll be passing on click method also. So on click this alert, let's connect. Okay, this will call the alert method of Windows. Okay, and here at I want text, means as a child I want contact me. Okay, so let's remove React from here because it should be outside of this curly brackets. Okay, so React like this, and now let's see how it is looking in our local host. So let's go to the local host. Okay, so here as you can see it is showing us the card component. Okay, but here profile image is not showing, so I think source is not existing. So let's change the source of this image file. Okay, so now let's see again. Yeah, so here you can see I have the card component ready. Okay, and now let's go to the code. So for this card component, only with a div inside the image h2 and p and button. Okay, so for only this component I had to write this much of code. Looks scary, right? Imagine building a full dashboard like that. You would be drowning in nested React create elements. Forget mapping arrays, doing conditions, or organizing UI. It quickly turns into mess. So now let's check this out. The exact same thing writing in JSX. Okay, so let's, what should we do? Let's comment this return. Okay, and we'll write the same thing again with the JSX. So return, and then as we discussed, we want a div with class name card, and inside that I want an image tag with source. I'll copy the source from here, and also I want an alt attribute with profile, self-coding brackets, and then I want an h2 tag with Nerdsprite, and then I want a p tag with what we had text React 19 full course, React 19 full course, and then we had a button. So let's add a button with on click event, where it will on click of that it will alert of let's connect. Okay, and then close the button tag, and here what we had of the text of button, contact me. Okay, so we have created the same thing. So now let's see how it is working. Okay, so as you can see it is the same thing, right? And now click on this contact me, it is also showing the alert box. So it is clean, readable, looks like HTML, but it is still a JavaScript, and it works great with all your tools and logic. Okay, so now this is what JSX do. Now let's see how we can pass dynamic value within our JSX. Okay, so suppose here in h2 tag we have Nerdsprite, right? But we want this value to come from a variable. So how we can create a variable? Let's create const. I'll name variable, and here the value Nerdsprite. Okay, so now I want this value to come from a variable. So how we can pass that? Within a curly brackets. Okay, so let's remove it from here and add a curly brackets, and here within the curly brackets just pass the variable name. So right now we have assigned it a name variable. Just add name here. Okay, so that's it. That's the only thing you need to do to pass dynamic values within a JSX. So now let's see it working or not. So let's go to our localhost and see. Here it is displaying our dynamic value. Okay, so now let's see how we can conditionally render some things in our JSX. Okay, so for that let's go in our VS Code. Okay, so here I want, based on one condition, I want to show these elements or not. Okay, and that condition should be a logged in flag. If it is true, then I want to show these elements, and if not, then I want to just show the text like please login. Okay, so let's create the flag. So const is logged in. It should be basically boolean, so it will, right now I'll keep it true. Okay, so now if it is true, then only I want to show these image, heading, paragraph and button. Okay, so let's add a condition here. So how we can do that? We can write a ternary operator, okay, within the curly brackets. So again write a curly brackets here, and then the condition so is logged. Okay, and with this ternary we can render two things based on the flag, whatever we want. Okay, so I want this, if logged in, then I want to show these. So let's wrap it within a div. Okay, and just paste the values here, and if not, then I just want to pass a text like please login. So now let's see if it is true. So right now it is by default true, so it should show these values. So now let's see, it is showing these values. Okay, now let's make that flag false. So here let's make this flag false and go back to again. Now here it is showing please login. So this is how you will render anything conditionally in within the JSX. Let's make it true again. Okay, so now suppose we want 3 card here instead of just 1. Okay, so what we can do, we can just, let's wrap it first within a div. Okay, and then we can just copy paste it, right, 3 times, and let's see. So see, here it is showing 3 cards. Okay, but this is not a correct approach, definitely. So what we can do, instead of just repeating our code, we can use a map method here. Okay, so how we can render multiple cards using map? So let's see that. But before that, let's create a array basically. So card name. Okay, and here let's add our card 1, which will be showing in the p tag basically, card 2 and card 3. Okay, now we'll be looping through this array, okay, within the RJSX. And how we can do that? So let's remove it, what we have just made the mess here. Okay, so just remove it. So how we can do that? Same thing, add a curly brackets, and now run a map method within this array. Okay, so here just card names dot dot map method, okay, and it will have the item of the array and also the index, okay. And now here we'll add whatever we want to render. So let's cut this div and paste it here, okay. So now our div rendered 3 times, but here we want this item to be printed also. So let's replace our paragraph tag with this item. So now let's see in the localhost. Okay, so you can see I have the 3 cards, card 1, card 2, card 3 within the paragraph itself. So this is the correct way. Okay, so suppose I want more cards here, so I want 3 more. Okay, so I'll add here card 4, 5 and 6, and it will directly print here. So we don't have to rewrite and copy the div again and again. So it will just come here. So see 5, 6. So that is correct way to render an array within the JSX using map method. So JSX is just a syntactic sugar. Okay, so whatever the JSX you have written here, it gets converted back into the React.createElement by Babel or Wheat. Means we always need a build setup to write a JSX. You cannot write it directly because browser doesn't understand. Okay. So now suppose if I want here after div, I want another h1 tag with high heading. Okay. But as you can see, it is throwing us error here within the file, and what it will display in browser, let's see that. It is saying adjacent JSX element must be wrapped within a closing tag. Why? Because JSX should have, or basically should return always one single parent element. We cannot return multiple element like this. Or suppose even if we'll add p tag, it will always give result. So we cannot return anything here. So what we can do, it should always return one single parent element. So let's wrap everything within a single div. Okay. So let's create a div here and wrap it. And see, error has gone. And now these two also will be shown in our browser. So let's see that. Go to browser, and here in the bottom as you can see hi and our paragraph tag as well. So that is the rule of JSX. You cannot return multiple elements at once. Okay. But suppose you want to pass multiple element without adding a div in your node. Okay. So here let's debug what we have added here. So let's see, go to the elements, inspect it. Here within the body tag, I have div. And now you can see within this div, I have the cards div container and h1 and p tag. But this div seems extra, right? So what we can do here, instead of wrapping within div all the elements, we can wrap it in with a fragment. Okay. So what is fragment? Just remove this. It should like this. So this is fragment, means it is empty brackets. It does not get added into the DOM element. Okay, so now let's go to the browser and inspect it. So in browser, let's save it. And now let's see, after div id root, we don't have any extra div, and directly we have that cards div and h1 and p tag. So it is getting wrapped, but not extra div is being added to the DOM. So that is React fragment for you. Now let's see common mistakes to avoid while writing JSX. Okay. So the first one is, don't use class, use class name instead. Okay. So if you have seen here, I have used class name card, not class. Why? Because class is reserved keyword in React for the class component. So that's why whenever you want to assign any class to any node, just use the class name. Okay. Second thing, don't use if statement in JSX, use this ternary operator instead. Third, don't use for loops, use map. Right here I have done the same. Okay. And fourth one is, always return one parent element or use fragment instead. So these are the common mistakes beginners do while writing JSX. So please avoid them. Okay. So now tips for JSX. JSX is just sugar but powerful. Once you understand the basics, use tools like VS Code plus ESLint for real-time feedback. Write JSX in .jsx or .tsx file for best performance. Want to render multiple items? Use map and pass props to child components. So, recap time. What we have learned today. First, we have learned what is JSX and why it matters. Then we have compared JSX with React.createElement. Then we have learned how JSX gets compiled. And also we have created a mini project of React card component. Okay. So, what coming up next now? In episode 3, we are going to learn about component, props and composition magic, where we slice this up. Literally, we'll split the monolithic component into clean, reusable piece and learn how to pass data. It's like turning pizza into shareable slices. If you find this helpful, drop a comment, hit that like button and tell me what your React card says. See you in next episode.